Nerima is just laughing because she's like, what?
The behind the scenes.
It's calm.
I'm still catching my breath.
It's like
understandable.
It's
the
like
transition
TV. This is what happens.
between Prof and Nerima was seconds long.
Yes.
So yes, it was.
So we should ask the question Mariam asked Prof, which is, how are you doing this Katiba Day?
How are you doing this Katiba Day?
Today, I'm doing good. I'm surprised there was not much traffic this morning coming in, which was interesting since schools are opened. But I don't know, I feel some kind of way, but I guess we'll discuss it.
What do you mean, some kind of way?
Because the person that decided, well, the administration that said that Katiba Day now gazetted as, you know, a public day.
Yeah.
It's also the same administration that has violated the Katiba more times than I can even imagine in such a short period of time. It just feels like we're living in a paradox. Yeah.
I agree. It is.
Would you be different if there was no presidential proclamation of this day and future days being Katiba Day? Would you feel different?
Well, not feel different. Actually, civil society organizations have been calling for this day to be recognized for years, right? And it just feels so, I don't know, you know how you've been begging for something for so long, and then all of a sudden when someone is like, fine, have it, you're just like, okay, why? You know? Why? We've been fighting for this.
It's the who, not the thing. It's not Katiba Day. It's who is saying that we should mark August 15th as Katiba Day.
Yeah.
But should we be allowing ourselves to be distracted by other things when you have, it's Katiba Day. Last year you marked Katiba Day on August 27th as civil society. And all the other years prior, even today the civil society is marking Katiba Day in the way it marks it. And you've been pushing for citizens to actually recognize this day as an important day. The birth of the Second Republic, August 27th, 2010, right?
Yeah.
We mark it. Now, any other thing that happens, should you now allow that to cloud your judgment? Especially because it has not said, let's mark it on 28th.
True.
Or said, only mark it between 8 and 9 a.m. Or, you know, it has not said anything.
No boundaries,
it has not said anything different, contrary to what you've been pushing for.
No, it's true. I just feel, you know, I don't want to make this day feel pessimistic. But I just feel that even we're talking about a time where there are unconstitutional offices. We're talking about the amount of corruption that we see in scandals almost every day. We're talking about nobody really being fired, losing their position, resigning. You know, even the amount that we've lost in health itself, the number of people who have died because of not access to facilities because of corruption. Somebody's head should have rolled. Somebody should have been, you know, fired. Somebody should be in front of a parliamentary committee and in trouble and shaking. But we have people who, you know, confidently stand on podiums and say, I know people who've received 10 million, 20 million, 15 million. You're so corrupt. And then we just like go on with life. And for me, the Constitution, you know, is so big on not mixing, you know, public office and, you know, personal wealth, and it's so big on values, it's so big on so many things, but we're just watching you know, Kenyan leaders violate it every single day. And so for me, that's the big picture.
Yes, I can see where Nerima is coming from. Okay, so Eric is saying let's not let the bigness and importance of this day be derailed by anything. But when you think about the quote-unquote hangover we're still on, whether it's there hasn't been any justice for victims of the protests, a lot of the things you've listed, it can cloud. It doesn't take away. I mean, that's why we're here. That's why we're marking 15 years. But it does feel like you're marking it with a bit of a somber approach, because you're like, this document should have been able to address some of what has happened.
Yes.
And so I can see where she's coming from.
I can also see where, I mean, for where all of us are coming from when you're looking at trying to balance between the positives and the negatives. And the glass, whether it's empty or full. I remember the other one saying, you pessimists and optimists, as you're arguing about the glass, the opportunities came drank the water. Okay? You guys keep it half empty, half full.
Someone came and
So can you just agree there's water in the glass?
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
There's water in the glass. It is halfway. Now, that is the important bit. And I think then say, how do we fill the glass? Or how do we consume what's in the glass?
Okay.
I'll never
I like
forget that thing of the glasses. Somebody will come and drink. I'll forever remember. Focus on what's in front of you.
Yeah.
We just had a conversation with Professor Kivuda Kibwana, and it was really just kind of, tracking that before bombers, pre-2010. And I'm curious to get your perspective post-2010, because I think a lot of us became alive to the Constitution a little later. I use this very carefully because older, younger can be relative. I'm curious as to when you discovered the gravitas of the Constitution and how you've used that to push for youth advocacy till now that it's turning 15.
Wait, have we given Nerima the quote?
Hi, Nerima. Here's the quote for today. We just got to it.
Yeah, we did.
She was
Mariam.
ready, so we said, let's
Let's roll.
And it's good you've said that, because it's even giving her a chance to take a sip of coffee.
some water.
Thanks for the reminder, Mariam. So the quote today is by Meaza Ashenafi. She is an Ethiopian lawyer, women's rights activist, and former Chief Justice of Ethiopia, and known for advancing women's rights and judicial independence in Ethiopia. And she once said, "A constitution must be a home for all. If some feel excluded, then it's just a piece of paper." Yes. So what's your reflection on that?
I think it's so indicative of today, because even the conversation we just had earlier, sometimes, especially when we see how the Constitution is being utilized, it's protecting some more than others. And there are a lot of marginalized, especially young people living in rural areas who don't really feel like they're even part of Kenya. And so for me, that quote rings loudly. And as we celebrate, 15, it's also an opportunity to pivot. How can we, have every Kenyan citizen feeling that they are included in this Constitution, and it's a law that protects us all, rather than having government that rules by law, rather than the rule of law.
Okay, right. So now to the question of when you recognize that the gravitas of the Constitution and when you used that to forge ahead with youth advocacy.
I would say, so first of all, a lot of people think I'm a lawyer. I am not a lawyer. And so my background is in journalism. And so when Siasa Play started, and it started online, honestly, I would say it started as a joke, but then now it has grown into an institution. It forced us to read more about the Constitution, about Kenya's history. So that's now when we started attending forums. So I would say around 2015. And so by then, that's now when the Constitution was 5. And it was also a period where there was a lot of conversation about PBOs, about civil societies were meeting frequently, also discussing what does this mean for us, what does it mean for organizing people. There was a lot of material on the Constitution. And I remember entities like Uraia were actually traveling around the country and giving people free constitutions. And so that's now when, we would download it online and read through it. And I would say where the practicality of actually understanding it was, what's this public participation thing all about? And I remember one of the first meetings I attended was in Mombasa, in Tononoka Hall. And there was just this gigantic document, and they were just brushing through it. And I was like, hey, is this the way it's supposed to happen? So that's now when this investigation of, is it supposed to be like this? We didn't have this material before. What does this mean? What do these roles mean? So I would say it's there. So it started from curiosity, and it was also very, very, very accessible. I don't think it's that much, I guess, pushed as it was when the Constitution was new.
We have to take a really short break, but when we come back, where we are, we'll look at it from as many angles as we can, the wins, the losses. And I'd opened this story on the Taifa Leo, it's the same one on the Business Daily, about this Jopo la Fidia, the compensation, what do you call it? Panel. Yes. William Ruto jana alitoa jopo la wataalamu 14 watakaongoza mchakato wa utoaji wa fidia. You've spoken about already the fact that, justice for the victims of last year's protest is still elusive. Is this a step? Is this constitutional? Let's begin there and figure out all the misses and the wins as far as our constitution is concerned. Hashtag is Fixing the Nation and TV. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Katiba at 15. We continue the conversation with Nerima Wako. Nerima is the founder, is the executive director of Siasa Place, a youth-led civic tech organization. She co-founded in 2015. I'm looking at her to make sure I have the facts right. And it focuses on constitution, governance, digital rights, and civic participation, and has reached thousands of young people. And that's why she's marking Katiba at 15 with us today. Right. A bit of feedback online. Charles Ndungo says, from Kivuda to Nerima, these are the kind of people who matter in terms of the conversations we're having. He also went on to say, if humility was a person, then Kivuda is that person. So thank you for fixing the nation. So yeah, that's why we're having this conversation. I know we've already begun by thinking through when you became aware of the importance of it. And really, I think about how the Constitution, this entire article that speaks to young people, youth participation, I'm just wondering how you reconcile that with the ability to make that become a reality in light of everything that we've seen, especially in the last year. Are you now sitting back as Siasa Place and saying, if we are going to have our voices heard loud and clear, the loudest in 2027, this is how we need to bring this particular article to life? Are you having those conversations? If so, how are you going about it?
So I'll talk about how our constitution is one of the only ones that actually has an article on youth globally, and even how Nigeria, not too far back, had a campaign called Not Too Young to Run. It actually originated from Kenya, and it was Yaga Youth Organization, and there were conversations in Tanzania, and where they were surprised that Kenyan youth could vie for particular seats just as long as they were above the age of 18. There was a clause that 35 was for president, but now I hear that's not even there anymore. And that was fascinating to them, because they were like, for governor, you have to be 35 and above. For senator, you have to be 35 and above. So they were surprised that in Kenya, you could have a member of parliament who is 20. And so that's now when that campaign was born, Not Too Young to Run, and they ended up removing 5 years from the clause. So for governor now, you can be 30. So it's not what they wanted, which is above 18, but it shows you progress. So there are so many young people that we meet from across the region who are like, you guys have this amazing constitution, and we learn from it, we pick from it, and we organize around it. And I've seen it, work, and in some cases, it also creates some gridlocks. And I say this because, for instance, youth, a young person, there's a young person everywhere in this country. It's majority population. And, you'll hear people saying, youth is devolved. Is it devolved? It should be devolved. Questions like that. You're like, wow. But youth are everywhere. Yeah. And so even when you look at the way counties will put the youth ministry, Kivuda actually had a youth ministry. He was a serious governor. I remember having a meeting where he actually called about 15 youth organizations together, and there was one night we worked till midnight with his team, just trying to understand what are the challenges young people face, what ministries do I need in my county, in Makueni, and how would it be led, and what does that look like in terms of entrepreneurship, for instance. Not a lot of counties have done that. Even as we speak, not even 50% of our counties have even a youth policy. Not even 50%. And so even when you're talking about the Constitution, then that means, are there resources, the protections, these rights we're talking about, how are they trickling down to our communities? So I still think that even though we have this amazing clause in the Constitution that just speaks to young people, sometimes it's used to box young people.
Wow.
So the same way even women rep, they're like, go for that women rep position. Like they don't want to see you anywhere else. Yeah, why are you not in your position? That's what happens with youth.
Yeah.
Oh, you're below 35. There's even AGPO for you. There's youth development for you. So why don't you go there? Go there.
Even in the party, there's a youth.
Yes.
Youth wing.
There's the youth wing. There's the youth league. So you're not really sitting in the neck where important decisions are made. So that's why I'm saying where I've seen certain presidents try and sort of mainstream young people, and that's Mwai Kibaki. He used to try and have even a youth desk in every department to have a youth involved in a lot of the councils, the boards. And we don't really see that push now. It's something that I would say we need to continue.
And speaking of young people, last year, this year, June were heavy months because of, started with the anti-finance bill protests. It trickled into just calls for accountability. And I was saying in the Taifa Leo page 2, there's the story on the formation of this team to basically figure out compensation. So kupitia tangazo kwenye gazeti rasmi la serikali toleo la jana, Daktari Ruto alimteua rais wa chama cha mawakili nchini, that's the LSK, Faith Odhiambo, kama naibu mwenyekiti wa jopo la wanachama 15 litakaloongozwa na mshauri wake kuhusu masuala ya kikatiba katika afisi yake, that's Professor Makau Mutua. Wanachama wengine ni wakili Kennedy Ogeto, mkurugenzi mkuu wa shirika la Amnesty, that's Horton Irungu, Daktari John Olukuru, Kasisi Kennedy Baraza Simiu, mwanasheria Dr. Duncan Ojwang, Naini Lankas, Dr. Francis Muraya, Julia Chepkemei, Pius Meto, Fatuma Abbas and Raphael Anampio. Jopo hilo litatekeleza agizo la rais kwa kuweka mpango wa kutambua, kuthibitisha na kutoa fidia kwa athiriwa wa machafuko yaliyokumba maandamano nchini. Haya. Now this is from 2017, ni waathiriwa wa tangu 2017 hadi Julai mwaka huu. Nerima, thoughts on this from a constitutional perspective and a political perspective?
So, clearly, it needs to exist. And the fact that it starts from 2017 is the political answer for me. There are a lot of atrocities that have happened in our past. And to choose where we will start is a problem. And even there have been a lot of debates as to, this is something that has been discussed for decades. And even the framework supposed to come from even Bunge, and even the fact that there's the Kenya National Human Rights Commission that is also supposed to anchor and be involved. And so even the announcement of how it's being chaired by an office that is unconstitutional. My constitutional answer is...
This is an advisor.
Yeah. My constitutional answer is not solid ground. It's being built on sand. However, the political answer is clearly we can see that it's targeting a particular period, because that's when, ODM and the protests of 2017. Yeah. So building public trust again, that look here, we are doing something good for you now, give me that goodwill one more time, especially as we're entering 2027. So you can see that they are mobilizing around the people. And this is families we're talking about. These are people who have lost family members. There's no amount of resource that can compensate even the emotional damage and trauma. This is heavy stuff. So it's not even something that you can just whip up and, solve in a matter of days. It's not. No amount of money can do that.
Agreed.
And so it also needs national healing, because we're also talking about a community that for a long time, you know, have been framed as the violent ones. And a lot of these individuals, many of them were not even involved in any protests. At home. We're talking about people being killed at home, babies, children. That sort of trauma. And so for me, I would say I see it needs to be done, but I think it's being done in a political moment. And it's not having the interest of the people at heart, unfortunately. And things that normally move with that sort of momentum end up being fickle.
Because it's not built on solid ground.
It's not built on solid ground.
You've talked about the trauma and, you know, that a lot of people have witnessed. During the Next Summit, you spoke to care-based organizing as a way in which you're mobilizing young people. Tell us about that and why it's so critical that we don't lose the word care. I think through how Professor Kivuda Kibwana, you know, I'm sure in their time, they just needed to organize. They kept going. There was probably a lot of trauma and issues that were faced. If you look at what happened during the Sabasaba rally, for example, if we were to go there. But now you're saying, yes, they mobilized then. It was strong. What we are doing is integrating an element of care. Why is that important for young people as they move forward with organizing, even ahead of the elections or just in youth movements?
So mental wellness is extremely important, and I can argue that it has a lot to do with also technological innovation and just how social media has come and overrun our lives. If you do not balance and even learn, we are seeing a lot of cases of depression and even how difficult the economy is. There are a lot of young people who are going through a sort of trauma that our parents probably experienced way later in life, when now a 15-year-old is actually experiencing something similar. And I would say it's important because even from my response to you, the people who are involved in protests, majority are young men. It's only the last 2 years we've seen a lot of women coming out in the protests strongly, but majority are young men. And so even if they, you know, end up passing or injured, their mothers, there's a certain sense of pain that mothers carry. And I don't even want to remember a recent example, but you remember there was a funeral where people went and carried a coffin from a police station, and you saw how the mother was wailing. Father was quick to accept resource, but I digress. A mother's pain will last for a lifetime, like for as long as she lives. That's a mother's pain. And there's a sense of, there's no amount of resource you can pay toward that mother, but a sense of community where there are a support group, where there are other women who've gone through the same thing, is something that should be like, okay, I can identify with this, not resource only. And I think this is important to highlight, because even if someone is injured, we talk about amputees, caretakers are often women. It'll be the wife, it'll be the mother, it'll be an aunt, it'll be a sister. It's very, very, very rare to find male caretakers, especially with you when now you cannot work. And now you have to be taken care of by a family member. So care-based organizing is extremely important, especially for young people today, because it's beyond an economic factor. It's now about well-being. It's also important to highlight because we have experienced young people going through pain, depression, when you're seeing the rise in alcohol, the rise in drugs, so early and exposed so early that they are looking for that sense of community. Because also remember, like even when our parents maybe were growing up, there were things they used to do together. Maybe they would hang out playing sports, or I don't know, there are things. For us, we don't really have a thing unless you're doing well or you have some resources to hang out with people. We don't sit we're just hanging out with friends, we're catching up. Even we don't.
There's the idea of they're called, is it a third space or a fourth space? I'll remember what it is. But spaces that are free, that are not your home, not
Uhuru
your
Park is
work.
not even free anymore.
That's it. That's exactly what it's meant to be, a park.
Yeah.
A space that's not your
Free,
work,
Bwana
your school,
Nerima.
It's 100 bob.
your home,
Right.
but
So
you
you
can
go to
hang out.
Uhuru Park.
Uhuru Park is free. I think she means Central Park. Uhuru Park is free. I've gone to Uhuru Park. You're right. It's free. It's free. The activities are not, but of course
Yes.
they've never been.
Okay.
But yes, the third spaces. And you're right. We do need that community and ways to care for one another. But just before, because time is doing the thing. We asked Prof this question in a different way, but more or less the same question. The biggest champions and the biggest detractors of the Constitution, in your view?
The biggest champions. I would go back to saying citizens, civil society have been pushing really hard around it. Women's groups and organizing, even though we don't have 2/3 yet, there's still momentum and push around it. The detractors, unfortunately, interestingly, the people who said no to the Constitution are the ones who have led us ever since the Constitution was promulgated. And the goodwill hasn't been there. So hopefully, I would tell Kenyans 2027, we need to vote someone who is a yes to the Constitution. And hopefully there we can pivot. Because when you have, and we have seen this for ourselves, when you have people in power who disobey court orders, rampant corruption, do not care for the rule of law, then you can clearly see that it is a piece of paper. It ends up becoming a piece of paper.
Have Kenyans internalized this Constitution?
Charles Ndungu was just agreeing with her. He's saying the former and current presidents were deeply opposed to the Constitution. That is one of the main reasons we're still talking about its implementation. I think he's absolutely right.
And yet we're talking about 15 years, 3 times.
3 times,
These people
Kenyans.
have been elected. So have Kenyans internalized this Constitution?
I think they are slowly.
How much longer do you want us to give them?
That's why I'm telling you, 2027, for me, if you vote
she'll
for
be an
her,
adult, it will be an 18-year-old. Sindio, will the Constitution be 18 in 2027?
The Constitution
It
will be 18.
Yes.
it'd be 18.
Old enough to vote.
Old enough to vote.
That is symbolic. That's not an accident.
Now we need to do a Katiba Day.
There,
Yeah.
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful of that because when you look at even, we talk about how the MCA, powerful position, the ones closest to the citizens, the MCA turnover rate is really, really high. So clearly the public is like, my MCA is not performing well, so what kaende. So I'm believing that they are more and more getting exposed to this, especially younger people.
Can I bust your bubble?
I know, Latif.
On Katiba Day.
Those things that we're talking about, the turnover, is not an internalization of the Constitution.
What is it?
It actually could even point to the exact opposite.
What is it?
Because we are not voting in, we are voting out. Right? Our Constitution does not give us powers to vote out. It gives us the power to actually delegate to people, to hand people the keys to perform functions in various offices. By understanding that, we had this conversation on the last night, and one of the things that we had in the room, Transparency International Kenya and EACC, those two institutions have dealt with candidates. In the last election, for example, Transparency International was part of the Transparency, the integrity, they call it the Integrity Alliance. They came up with a list. These people have questionable integrity. Please, Kenyans, be warned. EACC passed on a list. EACC published a list and handed over the list to IEBC. These people have questionable integrity. We voted for.
Was the president and deputy president on those lists?
In the last election? No, they were not. No, they were not. But that's what about it is. Many of the people who are on that list are in parliament today.
Yeah, but Latif, why didn't EACC then remove them from not being eligible to stand?
They couldn't.
Why?
The person who clears candidates for is IEBC. The Constitution is very clear on the roles, right? Let's bring that. This time, we have the highest number of wash and corrupt people in our parliament. Courtesy of who?
That's true.
The people.
I don't know if it's
We have 2 years to go into the next election.
Imagine.
Are you confident that these people are different? That we are actually going to say that we are electing people based on their integrity, based on their understanding of the job that we're giving them, and so on and so forth?
No, I think we're going to have some bad seeds, but I can bet you that the next parliament, the next county assembly is going to be young. I'll bet you that. We will have fresh faces, fresh voices, and it's going to be a wave. We are in a wave. Whether this political class, actually they know it. That's why they all need to clamp together, and they're still trying to grapple with this Gen Z movement wherever it is. They're still trying to capture it. They know it. We're in a wave. And I do believe that there are going to be citizens that are going to be asking tough questions. Because even now, in the communities, the questions around how much is going toward health facilities, drugs, and budgets, there's a lot more scrutiny. And the people who are normally aloof and not involved, which is not just the middle class, the ones who didn't participate last time but have voters' cards, this time they're like, I'm not sitting back, I'm going to engage.
Does young equal good?
No. It doesn't.
So then how do we foolproof ourselves from having, a young parliament, young county assemblies that are just, same script, different actors, younger actors, cooler actors. They speak Kiswahili and they rap and they're young, but same story.
But the parties that they belong to, they can't really be independent or have a critical voice because of how parties are organized when they are owned by political leaders. And these are the same leaders. Thank God for age, because we're seeing them aging out. They are getting too old to be able to control. And so they have to start thinking about who is going to second me. They have to start thinking future, because we're all going to end up in a grave. And so for me, that gives me excitement, because 2027, people are going to be approaching 90.
But they'll have mentored the next.
They're trying to mentor proxies.
Not
But
trying
they're
to.
trying.
I think they are.
They are not trying to, Nerima.
You guys,
They have been doing it.
I wish we had a whole conversation
Conclave time.
about, there's a whole intergenerational battle right now in political parties. I wish you knew how parties are struggling. They are showing a face that they're together, but all of them are struggling. They're struggling to stand firm because they are losing young members. There is an intergenerational fight as we speak, and you will see it come to light next year.
Wow. We need to have that conversation.
Right.
I'm just wondering if a wave is enough to conquer, first of all, to carry the spirit of the Constitution, but to also conquer, quote unquote, 2027. By that, I mean, a wave can be a moment of, people coming together in a revolutionary way. This is a wave of saying we're here to kick out the bad and bring in the good. But a wave should also include massive mobilizing, resourcing, unlearning, relearning, public participation. And that wave would need to counter I don't want to credit them by calling them a tsunami, but I feel like sometimes even though they're a handful, they are able to, in a way, capture the country. So how can this wave not just be a wave of saying, it's a wave of change? Because I don't think that's enough. Does that make sense?
Not.
There has to be categories of that wave.
I agree.
That massively push back on what could come at us in 2027.
I think 2002 was a wave, and we can learn from that wave. I also would like to give credit to Kenyans. We have had protests for the last 2 years. There is no country in Africa in the last 10 years that has a protest over similar issues more than 3 months. We have done that. We're in history. So there are actually African countries that are looking to us and learning from us. So for me, that answers your question. We have passed a wave. It's no longer a wave.
Yeah.
It's now become almost a culture. It's now become a culture. It's becoming a habit where people are now picking stories. They are not even waiting for media to pick it for them. They're actually now bringing these stories to media. We have culturalized it. So for me, I am so hopeful because we have changed. And we changed last year. And so we have now moved from the wave to it's an action of accountability watchdog, whistleblowing. And then now we have actually formed new opinion shapers. Like who knew of Nelson Amenya? You know, like there are now new people who are now forming opinions that just popped out from, you know, not people we are used to seeing in politics or politicians who normally form our opinions.
Yes.
So for me, this is something that we need to capitalize on. And I do believe when we're seeing so many people standing and saying they want to go for president, this is also a catalyst. It's saying, okay, open it as wide as possible. And eventually we will have people sifting through and others rising to the top. And this is going to bring diversity.
I like that.
Thank you for
I like
being
the
positive.
I was about to say that.
I was about to take you back now to the beginning.
Oh gosh.
You see that positivity? It's because of the Constitution. This beyond movement, this culture, this all, we credit this Constitution.
Yes.
Because it gives us space
Yes.
to do
We
that.
must keep pushing that space open.
So then in 15
We
years.
have to.
So how are you
Actually.
on this Constitution Day? On
I
that
am
note,
pushing it
Very good.
open
New answer.
with energy.
Okay, I was going to ask, I don't know if we have time in 30 seconds. Katiba 30, what's your hope?
New Kenya, the Kenya that we deserve. Yes, that's my hope.
Hey, if you say the Kenya that... Okay.
May I think I deserve a better Kenya.
I agree.
I do. I
agree.
definitely do. And I do not want to be led by scam.
Boom.
Whoa, okay. Nerima Wako, Executive Director, Siasa, please. Enjoy the rest of your Katiba Day. I know yours is busy, even Prof. There's a lot of people, there's many moving parts today and a lot of conversations. But in a few moments, we'll be hosting CPA Kidinji Kiragu, Chairman, Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee, IGRTC. Again, we're marking Katiba at 15. Devolution, delivery, and the people. That's the conversation coming up. It's coming up to 9 a.m. Good morning.